Hey guys, this is Kim Johnson, and you know I got soul.
All right, you know I got soul. Very excited to be here with Kim Johnson. Obviously, a lot of people know her from JS, but right now you're on the road with Usher, doing backgrounds. Like, Kim, first off, just talk about what the tour has been like for you, being on the road with Usher and just doing this world tour. How's that going for you?
Well, it's a full circle moment for me. I've been in the business for many years, and so of course I've known Usher for many years, and he was one of the artists that I said, I would like to go out with. I've been very intentional about artists that I want to work with and tours that I want to be a part of.
Right.
And so this one, I was like, okay, I'll go out for this one. I'll do this one. Mm-hmm. And it's just amazing to be out there on the road with him and to see him being the genius that he is. And it's been a lot of fun, a lot of work, of course, but it's also inspiring, too, to see that he is still out there doing it very strong on a high level.
Right.
And it's just great. I love working with people who are inspiring and who push you to that next level. So he's definitely doing that for sure.
Right. And a couple of shows ago, Ron Isley came out.
Yeah.
Was that your connect? Were you the one that made that happen? Do we give you the credit for that?
Yeah, I can't take all of the credit, but I did have a part in that. Being that, well, number one, he loves Usher. He adores him.
Right.
And him and Usher have a very good relationship as well. And he looks at everything that he's doing, and he's like, more of like that person that he knows he can go to, right, because Ronald has been doing it for 8 decades.
Right.
And who else to kind of like be your mentor in all of this, where you can stay grounded and stay true to who you are. So when they asked me if he would do it a few months ago, I was like, yeah, just call him. Like,
right.
I'm sure he will.
Yeah.
And Usher got on the phone and called him, and they had a chat, and Ronald was like, yep, I'll be there. And the rest is history. So it was a really epic moment, and it was really, really great just to be honored in that way. I'm very glad that Usher takes that time to really honor all those people who were before him and that inspired him to be him. He has a little piece of everybody in there.
Right. No, I think the cool thing for me when I seen it on Instagram was just watching all generations of R&B in one room together, celebrating the genre, singing all the classics.
Yeah.
Like, that was pretty cool to me.
Yeah, it's like his music just kind of takes on a life of its own, where it's like the young kids find it, and especially on TikTok when they do Bust It, like that's another song.
Right,
It just took a life of his own. Like it's been crazy. You see all these videos and TikToks on it, and then that's when they go down the rabbit hole to find out who he is, and then a few of them find me, and it's just really cool. It's really cool. I have a 12-year-old son who recently just found out who Mommy is, so that was really, really fun.
Right.
But he was still very much excited, though, so it's cool.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Busted, I really want to get into the whole JS history here.
Okay.
Obviously, you came up at a time when there was nothing like the music industry, right? The budgets were big.
Yeah.
All the producers and the songwriters were doing their thing.
Yeah.
Just take me back to the early days of JS and getting signed in DreamWorks, because that must have been a pretty cool time for you.
Yeah, DreamWorks. Wow. We were actually signed by John McClane and Gerald Bugsby. John McClane is literally the mastermind, the GOAT, the ghost of all things Michael Jackson and beyond. Like, he's just a genius himself. And he signed us to DreamWorks, and it took about 2 years to do the record.
Okay.
And we did some incredible records with RL and Walter Millsap.
Yeah.
Those were great records. Those were beginning records. And then we got in the studio with Tim and Bob. and did a bunch of songs with them. And they are genius. They're responsible for Cisco Thong Song and just so many other hits. Like, they have a massive catalog. And they're great guys too. And then towards the end of the record, when the record was done, R. Kelly expressed that he wanted to do one song on us because he was already working on Ronald's record,
right.
Body Kiss. So we were working with Ron on those records. So we were back and forth in Chicago for a few years working on the records. So then he expressed he wanted to do a song on us, and one song turned into 8 songs.
Wow.
And which was really, really cool then because, Rob is a phenomenal writer.
Yeah.
And during that time, everybody wanted a record on with him.
Yeah.
Everybody did. And it was pretty cool working with him, watching him create the songs and create the stories. And we were doing like a song a day, So we kept collecting songs. There were songs that we didn't even put on the record that, are kind of in the vault.
Right.
But it was an amazing experience. And, yeah. He was a colorful writer.
Right,
So,
for sure.
But it was fun. It was
Yeah.
a lot of fun to do it with my sister. So.
Now, Ice Cream is one of those records that when people hear that record, it brings them back to those times.
Well, yes.
What a record.
Yeah.
Like when we featured it on our Instagram page a while back, people are like, I remember that song. Or, just take me back to seeing that song on the radio, shooting a music video for it. Like, not a lot of people get to experience that, especially during that era.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
We were singing the song, as when we recorded the song, Rob was in another room, but he was feeding us line by line of the song.
Wow.
So we didn't even know really what the whole entirety of the song was until we actually sat down and listened to it from top to bottom after he mixed it, mastered it, all that. It was just a bunch of pieces together that when we left the studio, it was just a bunch of pieces out there. And we were like, okay, great. Guess this is going to be a great song. And then when we all heard it, we were like, whoa, okay, this is a pretty special song, but it's also pretty racy too.
Right.
And during that time, it just felt good. You know what I mean? And it was that type of music where, like you said, it took you back. And you get some comments that be like, oh, I remember this record. Then you get other comments that are like, I had no business singing this song, you know?
Yeah.
And it was really cool because creatively we were able to do something with Dave Myers, who directed that video,
yes.
which was really huge because everybody, wanted Dave Myers. And like you said, the budgets were bigger and everything was wide open. And then Fatima Robinson and Akman Jones choreographed that song. And the full circle moment is I'm working now with Akman Jones. He's the creative director for Usher, and so it's just a full circle all the way around.
No, that's amazing. And then speaking of full circle, obviously you mentioned that RL wrote some of the earlier records for you guys.
Yeah.
And obviously you guys saw RL on stage in
Yeah.
Minnesota. Talk about that moment for you.
Yeah, it was really good connecting and seeing RL again. He's a phenomenal writer, and I do see him here and there around in the industry and things like that. But that call and that connection happened. The creative director was asking, does anyone know any other hot people and great people in Minneapolis? And I was like, next. I mean, come on.
Right, yeah.
They have hits galore, of course. And so I connected RL with the creative director, and then boom, they're there,
Amazing.
So.
And then, of course, I mentioned Tim and Bob earlier. I feel like some of the records that you guys did with them are not only the best on your album, but some of the best on their discography too. The record Right Here With Me.
Yeah.
I feel like that's such an amazing record. Just talk about what you remember about working with them.
See, our Tim and Bob are, for me, I'm naturally an introvert,
right.
but I'm trapped in this wonderful extrovert world.
Right.
And so for me, being in the studio and working with Tim and Bob with all of the layers and the colors and the harmonies, that for me was literally the best experience. Like, that's my sweet spot. Being in the studio, being able to create in color and just be free, like, that's my sweet spot. And doing Right Here With Me and doing all those harmonies, because again, they worked a lot with, like, you know, Jimmy Jam and Terry, like, they're kind of like mirrored themselves to that, which is amazing because Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis are phenomenal. And we wanted that Janet Jackson harmony, that Janet Jackson sound, but still that family blend. And so those stacks were crazy. Yeah. Like, it was really crazy. And I had so much fun doing them. And Tim and Bob, we were just having so much fun creating them. And they didn't. It's like it's the same thing when you're in the studio and you get that energy, you get those. You're vibrating on such a high level that you yourself listen back and go, wow, dang, okay.
Right.
You know, I did that. That sounds pretty good. And that's what they always brought out, you know, with Bob being the quiet one that's kind of chill, but you could still tell, like, he's a genius. And then you have Tim, who's just like, hey, what's up? Right. You know, he's very vibrant. And that's the balance between the two of them, which is great, you know, because they can create so many beautiful things, like that song, Right Here With Me.
Yeah, Stay is another one.
Stay,
yeah.
The interlude to Stay, you know, it's like, it's just fun. And hopefully I can get back in the studio with them after the tour is over with. I know we've been talking about it, so
for sure.
Hopefully I can get some records out of them.
I agree. Want to talk about after the release of that album? I know you guys ended up leaving the label.
Yeah.
And then you went on afterwards to kind of pursue a different career path, doing backgrounds for different artists. Like, what was that transition like for you?
For me, it was a little bittersweet for us because our album was doing so well. And, you know, we had literally projected over 1 million records by the time Love Angel came out.
Yeah.
And it just was like, it was very heartbreaking, I will say that, I'll be honest. Because, you know, but also when I look back now, I'm very thankful.
Right.
Because it just wasn't the right timing, you know. And even though it was a good record, my sister and I are still recording, you know. We've still done things. We put out a Christmas EP.
Yeah.
Kim and Kandy.
Yes.
We put out a Christmas EP, was it 2 years ago? And we still release it every November. We release it again. But we didn't stop. But and of course she's married to Ronald, so we still did his records, you know. His last record, Make Me Say It Again, I vocal produced every song on his record and sang background on the songs. And, you know, it's like I still didn't stop. You know, I just did it from a different seat. And went on tour with Rod Stewart for 10 years, and that was fun. You know, Earth, Wind, and Fire a few years, and Jennifer Hudson a few years. Like, you know, I just kept going because for me, it was me perfecting my craft and perfecting, just perfecting my craft, period. That's what I wanted to do. And I decided that I wanted to see what other genres was there that I could learn from and just actually take and create another sound for. So, so that part was cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I didn't stop. I still haven't stopped. Still working, even though I'm on tour right now. Kandy and I head up his Ronald's record label, RI Top 10. Yeah. And so we run that. He also has a brandy and a vodka out. They're called Contagious. So we're in charge of that.
Right.
You know, and just building the branding of them. But Kandy and I do it, you know, from another seat. So it's still fun. I'm still doing music, still doing all that, but everyone's like asking when I'm going to put out my own music, and I'm working on it.
Right. No, that's a great point, because when we mentioned that we were going to be interviewing you, I think the first thing people said was like, man, her and her sister, they're beasts locally. I'm like,
thank
so
you.
I'm happy to hear that you guys are still working on music. I'm happy to
Yeah.
hear that you're thinking about putting out some of your own music.
Yeah.
What do you kind of envision your sound to be as a solo artist?
That's a tricky one.
Yeah. Because R&B is so different than, I guess, when JS first came out.
It is different, but not so much in the way where now you're going to get a little bit of R&B in every genre right now.
Right. That's true.
You know, it's like when JS was out, we did a lot of pop record. We were R&B, but we were pop as well.
Sure. Yeah.
And now you're getting mostly like the foundation of the music now. It's R&B.
Yeah.
Like even from country music, even from pop music, you're gonna get some kind of bed of R&B in there. Whether it's the bass line or whether it's the 808, like you're gonna get a little bit of R&B in there somewhere.
Amazing. So Kim, that's all that I've got for you. Anything you'd like to add?
Thanks for calling me to do this because, again, I normally don't do interviews, so this was really cool. Thank you.
Sounds good, Kim. Oh, actually, I forgot to ask you one last question here.
Yeah, of course.
You mentioned Busted earlier, and that record, it still continues to live on to this day.
Yeah.
It seems to have a life of its own now. Like,
Yeah.
just talk about why you think that is. Obviously, it's a different type of record.
Yeah.
But why do you think that song continues to live to this day?
Because of the drama.
Yeah.
Because of the drama, that's why. Like, people like the drama, the dramaticness of it all. And I think everyone has that one friend that they're always trying to cover for.
Yeah.
And, you know, she always some kind of way gets busted in the end. But if you do have that friend, make sure she has her story straight. Don't let her go out like that.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, I think it's it. Like the kids are finding it. It's all TikTok. They have different variations of it.
Yeah.
They have one now that is just your facial expressions, and everyone sends it to me. You know, whatever the trend, and they always send it to me. And when I am doing shows with the Isley Brothers, it's very cool to perform too.
For sure.
So, but yeah, it's taken on a life of his own. Like my son, funny story. He when he found out that was me, he found out on TikTok.
Right.
And he's like, Mom, how could you do Uncle Ronald like that? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, that's Auntie Kandy's husband. How could you do that? I'm like, oh my God. I was like, son, it's fake. It's make-believe. It's a whole story. And he was just very heartbroken. He was about 8 or 9. He was very heartbroken. He was like, Mom. Then when I told him, he's like, oh, okay. All right, fine. But it's crazy how the new generation
for sure. Because for a moment he thought you were busted.
Oh, he really thought I was busted.
Oh, man.